Exxaro has come out tops in the 2014 Nkonki Top 100 Integrated Reporting Awards from third place last year. In fact, the company shot up from 28th position just 4 years ago. Joining me with more are Carina Wessels, she's Company Secretary, Group Company Secretary at Exxaro, also Thuto Masasa, Partner at Nkonki. Thanks both very much for coming in. So, Carina, first of all, congratulations. What's changed over the past 4 years that's pushed you from 28th position up to first position this year?
Well, I think, in all honesty, we tried in 2011 to do an integrated report after King 3 came out. But in all honesty, that was really more a combined report than truly an integrated report. And it's been a process for us really incorporating integrated thinking into the way that we do business. And making that part of our report. And the report in the end is just an outcome of a process that's been entrenched in the organization through how we report to the board, how we communicate to the board, the kind of things that we measure and what we focus on. So it's great to see the proof is in the pudding.
Well, so what is an integrated report? How does it go further than the traditional annual reports?
Stephen, you could say really integrated reporting. I like to actually model it as a new way of corporate reporting. And what that really means in my terms is now incorporating everything else that basically the company is all about. So we talk about value creation for stakeholders and for shareholders as well. So integrated reporting will be in a position to tell that story about a company over and above just the financial numbers. So you'll get to basically hear particularly the strategies of a company, the business models of a company, and as well what the future, short-term, medium, as well as long-term views are of a company.
Well, annual reports were typically backward-looking. Is this something that you've integrated into yours, that it is also forward-looking, Carina?
Obviously, as much as one can predict into the future, and as much as the JSE allows, around what's permissible or not, but definitely around the message of why we believe we will be a sustainable business, linking that back to resources and reserves and the core assets of a mining company. And then giving projections what we believe the industry and the markets would do and how that will impact on our ability to create value in at least the medium and hopefully the long term as well.
Does this make for a much larger annual reports, their integrated report? Because I've seen some that are the size of telephone directories. I mean, how do you get all that information into an annual report the same size?
Stephen, I may touch just on the integrated reporting framework, which was released in December 2013. And one of the key things that the framework does encourage is what the concept around materiality. Materiality, so the companies should select what is material within the company and translate that to a stakeholder and a shareholder. And conciseness of the reports is also key, because if you're able to basically understand what's key for a company, you'll be in a position to tell it in a concise manner. You don't need to necessarily go around the report with many pages. And would
that supplementary information be available elsewhere?
Correct. Most of the supplementary information, we're seeing it on web links for most companies at the moment, so they would refer you back to the web links with details. We've seen a number of companies, and Exxaro would be one of the examples where they actually, in the integrated reporting, they bring in the abridged annual financial statements or the condensed financial statements.
It's also about readability, writing it in plain language, isn't it, Carina?
Absolutely, and it's always important to remember that we're communicating with a wide range of stakeholders. You're not just communicating with the capital markets per se, although you need to address the needs of your institutional shareholders and your larger shareholders in general. You also want to be able to communicate to the small shareholder that holds an interest, and your communities in which we operate. Specifically when it comes to a mining company, those communities are critical to us, and your wider stakeholder base like government. From our perspective, our license to operate is critical to us. It's a material issue, so being able to communicate with government effectively is equally critical than the capital markets in general.
Well, Thuto, were there any clear standout factors in the top companies? And I think we have 4 of them up on the wall behind us. We've got, of course, Exxaro, Standout Bank, Sasol and Nedbank. Any standout features that put them above the rest?
Yeah, absolutely. I think with Exxaro, I'll start with number 1. Particularly with Exxaro, the business model was very well explained, and in that business model, they brought in what the integrated reporting framework refers to as the 6 capitals. They brought them in a form of calling them key resources, and you could see exactly how they fit into the key activities. And I think perhaps with Standard Bank and similar to Sasol, what I really liked about their reports was talking talking about materiality. They upfront basically explained what materiality is in their concept, and in fact Standard Bank went ahead and actually identified the material issues and basically said how they interlinked.
And Nedbank the same?
Pretty much the same, that you see the same sort of story around the business model with those capitals being brought in. Yes.
Have you had feedback from your shareholders or other stakeholders on how the report has evolved over the past 4 years?
Yes, Stephen, I think one of the main features is the fact that it's much thinner than it used to be, and obviously the fact that through the New Companies Act we're able to include summarised financials makes it a lot easier, and because that's the bulk of it, especially the remuneration section, which everyone is always very interested in. Our institutional shareholders have also given us quite extensive feedback, and we really take that to heart in that specifically around linking remuneration to performance and how that really links to our strategy. We're definitely going to try and incorporate a bit more of that into our next integrated report. So we do listen to them, and we do take the feedback seriously and try and adjust our approach and our reporting accordingly.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you spoke about a disclosure of remuneration for directors, and those are some of the things that you highlighted that were wrong in some reports. So companies reporting in silos, not user-friendly, and also lack of disclosure. Is that something you want to see in your integrated report, how much you're paying the directors?
Well, I guess it's transparency at the end of the day. Shareholders, investors, everybody, stakeholders would want to see basically how people are being remunerated for whatever they are doing. And basically if they are creating value.
And how many meetings they're attending.
Indeed, it is encouraged as well by King. So I guess if you are going to create value for a company, we need to basically measure that value and link it to a remuneration of some sort.
Well, you mentioned King, and of course Mervyn King says South Africa is a leader in integrated reporting. Would you go along with that? Have you seen in the past 4 years, while you've been judging the integrated reporting, that we have evolved and that we are leading the way?
Correct, Stephen. I mean, we started off 4 years ago at Nkonki with basically top 40 companies, and we evolved into top 100 companies. When we started, most of the companies actually had not even or we're not getting anything above 80%, which is an A rating in our scoring. And the second year, which was in 2011, we saw that evolve to 5 companies achieving an A rating. The third year, it was 11 companies, and this year we basically had 22 companies achieving that. So overall, we can say corporate governance, which is something that King did encourage, we see that evolving very well, and particularly when it comes to integrated reporting, we saw that evolve as well, because on the framework itself, we saw companies really do well with early adoption, because the framework, as it did indicate earlier on, it was only adopted in December 2013, or at least published in December 2013.
Of course, now the pressure on you to maintain that #1 position.
Absolutely. Watch the space.
We will do. We will chat to you in a year's time about it. Thanks both very much for coming in.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
That's Carina Wessels, Company Secretary at Exxaro, and also Thuto Masasa, Partner at Nkonki.